Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's Development and Management Committee. I'm the chair of the committee, and my name is Mohammed Adnan. We'll do a quick introduction of everyone on the table before we start.
Good evening. My name's Neil Watson. I'm the Assistant Director for Planning. Apologies, it's my responsibility to get the IT working and I can't, so you might not get a presentation tonight.
I'm Emma Barker. I'm the Legal Services Manager and the Legal Advisor for the committee.
Ashley Sutcliffe, Councillor for Horsefield and Waterside in Colne.
Councillor Sarah Coburn-Price for Bullsworth and Foleridge, also in Colne.
Councillor Mick Waddington, Vyford Bridge in Colne.
Good evening, Councillor Martin Stone, Barrowford and Pendleside.
Good evening, Councillor David Hartley, Councillor for Eby and Coates Woods.
Councillor Lola Whip by Norswick Ward.
Councillor Faraz Ahmed for Wolverton and Whitefield.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Yvonne Tennant for Marsden and Southfield.
Joanne Eccles, a Committee Administrator at Pendle Council.
Thank you. Item 1 on the agenda is declaration of interest. Does any member have any interest he or she wishes to declare? Nope, that's fine, thank you. Could we please approve the minutes which were for the meeting which was held on the 26th of May? Thank you, and a seconder. Thank you. Planning applications. And what we'll do, we're going to just move a few of the applications around. We'll bring forward the ones where there's speakers, so if there is any speakers after you do wish to leave, you're more than happy to. So the first item on the agenda, and we do have a speaker on, is 26/0221/REM, residential development of up to 113 dwellings of outline planning at site of former Riverside Mill and land bordering with Charles Street and Baker Street, Readiford Road, Nelson. Neil, would you like to comment on it first before? Yeah, sorry. Let's bring this.
Speaker?
Yeah, speaker first, sorry, I do apologise. The speaker is Kate Slater, the agent. And I just want to remind everyone gets up to 5 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Committee. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Planning Officer for their engagement and in bringing the application to committee with a recommendation for approval. This is a reserved matters submission for the matters of appearance, layout, landscaping and scale. Outline approval was granted in 2023 for up to 140 dwellings, with details of vehicular access. Westchurch Homes Limited, the applicant, are contracted to purchase the site subject to planning approval. Westchurch Homes are a house builder headquartered in the North West, specialising in the delivery of high-quality affordable housing. They operate a partnerships model, which means they work closely with registered providers to deliver affordable homes. The application before you would bring forward one of the long-standing brownfield residential allocations in the Pendle local plan, which has a brownfield first strategy to meet housing need. This would restore a vacant derelict site in the urban area of Nelson. The Nelson, Briarfield and Reedley Area Committee have acknowledged that the redevelopment of the site would be beneficial. One of the concerns raised in the Area Committee meeting was affordable housing. 113 affordable homes and apartments would be delivered in collaboration with a registered provider of social housing using grant funding from Homes England. Homes will be allocated for those most in need in line with the Council's allocations policy. The Council's own homelessness and rough sleeping strategy stated that affordable housing has reduced because rents have risen in the private rental sector and there are less vacancies and longer turnaround times between tenancies in social housing. One of the key aims of the PPF is to deliver a sufficient supply of homes. The presumption in favour of sustainable development for decision-taking specifically identifies providing affordable homes as a key policy area with particular significant weight. The Pendle local plan notes viability is challenging in the M65 corridor, and in most cases the policy requirement for 10% affordable homes would not be viable, except in limited circumstances within rural areas. Considering challenges with viability and affordable housing delivery in the borough, the development of 100% affordable homes should be welcomed. The housing mix is comprised of 14 one-bedroom apartments, 22 bed houses, 56 three-bedroom and 23 four-bedroom houses to address the diverse local needs. The range of property types will create a sustainable and mixed community with quality energy-efficient homes featuring air source heat pumps to reduce running costs for tenants. We understand concerns from local neighbours, given the site has been empty for such a long time. We've worked proactively with officers and consultees to achieve a policy compliance scheme, and we're pleased to confirm that all statutory consultees are satisfied with the application. The layout of the development is attractive and appropriate to the area, with a central landscaped area along Wolverden Water, including retention of the former mill chimney to reflect the site's industrial heritage. Lancashire County Council Highways have said that the proposals will not have a negative impact on highway safety or capacity. The proposed road widths will be 5.5 metres with 2 metre wide footways in accordance with standards. During determination, minor amendments were made to the layout to ensure bin collections could be made by the council's bin wagon. Each apartment will have 1 allocated parking space, and the 2 and 3 bedroom homes will have 2 spaces. LCC Highways have accepted 2 spaces for the 4 beds, as affordability is a key determining factor of car ownership levels. Evidence from the surrounding area demonstrates there is a lower car ownership figure than average, at a ratio of 0.86 cars per household. The proposal in front of you gives an average of 1.9 cars per household, more than double the local car ownership. Highways are happy that the parking strategy will not result in on-street parking as a result. The proposals are supported by the LCC Lead Local Flood Authority, with whom the developer has met to collaborate with to address existing flooding issues. The development provides an opportunity to improve surface water flooding on and off the site around Readyford Road by introducing a sustainable drainage system that will restrict flows and incorporate significant new underground storage infrastructure. In summary, the development would provide much-needed affordable housing for those on the housing wait list and deliver a brownfield allocation in the Pendle local plan. The proposal complies with all relevant national and local policy. We respectfully request that the committee support the officer's recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Neil?
Chairman, just a minor point, and obviously then the debate. There was an issue about a pedestrian link from to Dover Street, or to and from where the school is. It's been confirmed that will be put in, and the wall will be lowered so that there's no conflict with pedestrians, so you've got visibility, Chairman. That's in the update. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Corbett-Price.
Is it possible for me to speak directly to the agent and ask a question? So I don't want to rain on your parade, and there's so much that's positive about this application. This is a brownfield site that's been empty for such a long time, and obviously this will be sustainable housing, etc. But in 2022, there was the most beautiful design and access statement put forward for the outline planning, and I completely bought into it. What I really liked about it was that the parking was not just relentlessly on drive, so that the facades of all the buildings are just car. There were little parking courts, and it was a denser scheme with 160 units, modern design, and it really took into the fact the urban grain, the industrial urban grain around the area, whereas your scheme says in its design and access statement, I think it says it's a typical suburban scheme. And it just feels to me like a sort of, I've written on the front of my copy of the report, Anywheresville. Whereas the previous scheme in red brick and so on really seemed to draw intrinsically on the urban grain of Nelson. Can you explain why you turned your back on that outline scheme from 2022?
Shall I get the microphone?
Yeah.
I mean, that didn't include layout, so it was always an indicative scheme. It was also for a different applicant, so that was before Westchurch Homes were involved, and their model is just different than what it was proposed at the time. But I think they've done a very good job with keeping the distinctive features on the site in terms of the chimney and the landscaped area, which is also retained too, and that was in the previous outline application. Yeah.
Okay, so no, I get that, and then and there is loads that's positive, but to me the very dull house types and the drives will lead to a very anywhere type development. And we always find whenever there are new housing applications, whatever LCC say with parking standards, that there are cars everywhere, there are cars on the drives, there are cars on the pavements, there are cars everywhere, and it always seems to be the way, doesn't it? And we're always told, oh no, it fulfills the standard, and yet somehow real life is different from the standard. But I see what my colleagues have to say.
Thank you. Councillor Farras?
Yes, no, I kindly welcome the idea of this development, and it's about time something was actually developed in that particular location. And if you look at a lot of the developments in the area, as far as Barrowford are concerned, I know there was a recent development last year over in Earby, and the most recent ones over towards Priory Chase, etc. All them houses have drives, all them houses have parking in front of their houses. So there isn't this so-called courtyard of parking in a certain, which is a great idea, but I think it still fulfills the requirements of getting affordable housing within the area. So I kind of welcome the idea.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Lolowip.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I'm likewise dissatisfied at the sort of the suburbanity of it. I think it's a core urban location. I think a denser scheme would have met more housing demand. But I mean, I appreciate that we are where we are. Chair, I mean, I'll move that we go with the recommendations. I think it's perfectly adequate. I'm glad that the pedestrian accesses have all been talked through. We've got that change for LCC's comments gone through, and I think it's going to be a great change for the landscape of Nelson.
Councillor Farras?
Yeah, I'm happy to second that. There was one query that I did mention in the area committee. It was with regards to obviously more houses equals more traffic, more need for schooling, more need for doctor surgeries, etc. How would that implicate anything, Neil? Would it?
The original permission, sorry, through you, Chair. Apologies. The original permission had an education contribution, but that was subject of a variation of condition application due to financial viability, and we know through the local plan that viability in not all parts of every part of the M65, but certainly areas around Bradley is really challenging. So it's not a surprise that when you look at the viability, it's very limited. And you look at our viability studies, and it's showing schemes like this are really marginal. In terms of the overall provision, it's an interesting one. The County Council look at education, and the vast majority of applications that come through are saying there is enough education facilities that their view in and around. It's certain schools get really demand led and they're oversubscribed, but generally there are places. But the local plan, when you put that together, it does look at what are the education needs. Do we need a new school? Do we need a new junction on the motorway? Whatever it may be to make the. Do we need a new hospital? And we go to all the providers, NHS, etc., and they do chip in to say, based on the housing numbers that we're putting forward and the projections, we need X and Y. And none of them have come forward with the need for a new healthcare facility. I know there's one needed, as Councillor Lolowip will know, in Barnoldswick, but they're saying it's overall. The level of development isn't such that we need new facilities across the board, and we're led by them, I'm afraid.
Sure, that's fine. I'm happy to second what Lola's put forward.
Thank you. Any other speakers before we move to the vote? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question, probably for you, Neil. So the ecology report references that bat surveys have been partially undertaken. Why partially?
Time of year. You can't do them all. If you do them early in the year, you need to do them again later on for emergent surveys. There's very little on site, to be honest. It's only the chimney really that will host bats, because there's no trees as such that will host them, and the buildings have gone, so it's going to be the chimney that would host bats, and that's not being touched.
The culvert might be a flying way, as it were.
Jeopardy, not weed that needs to go though, isn't it, as well? So.
Anyway, I know it's conditioned, so I just wondered why.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, to move to the vote. Thank you. As set out in the report, all those to approve set out, which is delegate grant consent. All those for? And that's been delegate grant consent. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is going to be the EB one, on which we've got EB Road Salterford, where we've got the speakers on, which is 26/0204/FUL. Erection of 28 dwellings with detached garages and associated landscaping infrastructure and altered vehicle access at land and field number 0087 EB Road Salterford. The first speaker on this is the agent, which is Mike Hughes.
Can you hear me okay? Perfect. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members, for the opportunity to speak at this committee. Obviously, previously been to the West Craven Area Committee and been referred back to here. You would have all received a letter from my colleague Graham Love, just setting out some of the salient points with this application, and I'm just here today just to kind of ratify those points for your information. So, the application site itself has full planning permission for 34 houses. Pre-commencement conditions have been discharged, and therefore if the applicant chooses, they can be built immediately without the requirement for any further council approval. The area committee believed that the previous planning permission had lapsed, but that is not correct. The evidence that we've distributed to yourselves confirms that it was implemented in July 2022 by the construction of a concrete foundation for the garage of plot 28. This work constitutes a material operation for the purposes of implementing the planning permission. It was discussed with officers and inspected by the council's building control service at the time and approved. The backfill trench has been re-exposed this week for your information, and as previously referenced, the email and photographs confirming that position were sent to you all. The ability to develop the site under the existing planning permission is known as the fallback position, and that means that 34 houses will be built if the current application for 28 houses is refused. The previous permission was obtained by a different company, which is why a revised scheme is preferred. The fallback position therefore sets the baseline against which the current planning application should be judged. The fallback position means that the development cannot be prevented in principle, and the proposal is not contrary to the new local plan. This is confirmed by the inclusion of the site within Appendix 1 of the local plan, which is the housing supply trajectory. It appears as site reference EY076 in the committed major sites with planning permission housing supply, with a yield of 34 dwellings, and is expected to be delivered within the next 5 years or sooner. Comparing the current application for 28 houses to the existing planning permission for 34 houses shows there is no difference in the highway's access location and the surface water drainage and sewerage systems. There's no difference in terms of trees, hedgerows, landscaping and ecology. No greater effect on neighbours' amenity and outlook, and being slightly smaller, it will have less effect in terms of traffic generation and local infrastructure. It will also comply with the statutory biodiversity net gain condition in accordance with government policy. I would therefore hope that you are able to follow your officer's recommendation for a delegation back to for approval. Many thanks.
Thank you very much. Second speaker is Jasmine. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. God, I'll let you make a start as well.
Chair and members, I am speaking on behalf of over 40 local residents who object to this application. Whilst I've noted the lead local flood authority's latest update to withdraw its objection for this application, a closer look at their response reveals that its new position relies on both this site and the adjoining site to the northwest, the land behind Whitelays Close, discharging to the same outfall. However, the application relating to that site was formally refused by this council on the 20th of May. Therefore, I question whether it is appropriate to place reliance on a drainage arrangement that appears linked to a separate development which has been rejected. Yorkshire Water still objects to this proposal. They state clearly on the record that insufficient information has been provided to properly assess the development. These are not just emotional worries of local residents. These are the explicit technical concerns raised by the professional bodies responsible for drainage and flood management. Yet, despite these unresolved issues, this committee is being asked to grant permission tonight on the mere assumption that acceptable details can just be figured out at a later date. The applicant's own geo-environmental report admits that the site sits on impermeable, cohesive clay and is entirely incapable of absorbing water via soakways, yet they have no approved drainage strategy. Please look at photo 1. The top aerial view, you can see the faint line running down the middle of this field. That's a natural spring. The photo 2 shows that spring on the 5th of January this year. The surface water already runs directly off this field onto residential properties, replacing this large area of permeable greenfield land with roads, driveways and hard surfaces increases the importance of getting the drainage solution right. Surely that solution should be proven before permission is granted, not afterwards at the risk of residents. This application fails to demonstrate biodiversity net gain. The applicant's own submitted metric exposes a catastrophic negative 28.44% net loss, directly violating Pendle's own policy DM04. Again, the committee is being asked to assume this can be resolved at a later date. The applicant's ecological appraisal dismisses the site as suboptimal for terrestrial mammals, but our daily observation of bats, nesting birds, and woodpeckers and other small mammals disproves this report. There are also legitimate evidence concerns regarding highway safety. Whilst records show few reported injury collisions, local residents know this road well and see the real-world danger daily. People have unfortunately passed away on this road due to collisions in the past. If you look at photo 3, which was taken on the 10th of December 2025, this shows a severe vehicle collision where a car is smashed between two mature trees. Now, if you look at photo 4 with the hedgehog, in the immediate background of that very same photo, those two trees are there from the crash. If you turn back to photo 1, the map at the bottom of the page, that it shows these exact two trees are directly opposite where the developer intends to force a new 28-house junction on this exact blind spot. Photo 5 shows the severe restricted blind spots looking in both directions from either side of that proposed access point. To prove this isn't an isolated issue, photo 6, taken on the 9th of February 2026, shows another vehicle collision that occurred just after that blind spot. Local knowledge must not be dismissed simply because damage-only incidents and near misses do not appear in statistics. The danger here is real and heavily evidenced. Finally, this site sits outside the settlement boundary in open countryside between Earby and Salterford. Residents are concerned that development here further erodes the rural gap between two communities, which policies SP02 and DM09 state we must strictly protect our rural boundaries from sprawling development. I know there is anxiety about appeal costs, but there is no overriding need to justify destroying this already saturated open countryside outside the settlement boundary. Please be consistent with your previous decisions. Do not delegate your democratic oversight to a closed-door officer agreement. We are asking you to stand with your community and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Neil, let you come in on this first, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, just a couple of points I think that Jasmine spoke about just now. Drainage arrangements, it's not unusual to deal with things by conditions if you set out the overall parameters of what you're dealing with. And I understand the point about costs. The last cost we got on this for refusal on a drainage ground was £25,000. Okay, so just be clear on that was the case in Colne. We're still waiting for Yorkshire Water. They won't object in terms of the flood risk and drainage strategy, because that's the role of the lead local flood authority in EA, but it's going to be surrounding the foul and foul effluent disposal, because surface water is going to be disposed of potentially elsewhere. So, Chairman, subject to the comments of Yorkshire Water, the drainage arrangements, and I do take it that water goes across sites, goes across every site, and it's dealt with on every site as well. Provided that strategy is correct, then there's no technical reason why permission shouldn't be granted, because drainage will be dealt with by the hydro breaks, etc. BNG, the government tell us there's two different people can get things mixed up. There's ecological impacts, which might be unacceptable, and then there's biodiversity net gain. Biodiversity net gain is saying what is the value of that site, and it then says that a developer shall improve that by 10%. Now that can be on site, it can be off site locally, or you can buy national credits to say this is worth 10 units, therefore we have to provide another 1 unit elsewhere, because it deals with it in units. But what the government say to us is, as a council, you put a condition on there, and it's up to the developer then to come back at a later stage, don't have to do it now, to say how that 10% increase will occur. Okay, so the difference between the ecological impacts, if you had curlews and invertebrates and great crested newts on site, you may refuse that, because obviously the impact on those direct ecological matters would be so great as to refuse it. What the report is saying, it is a field, it doesn't have any particular significant wildlife on there. Generally speaking, fields that are cultivated don't. It's unusual for them to have that, so your interest is round the periphery, etc. And most of the trees that can be retained are going to be retained on there. Okay, so my clear advice is there isn't an ecological reason to refuse, and the BNG will be dealt with by the national condition, which is a standard condition that government tells us to put on every application. Highway safety, I do get that. My understanding that the death was a person who was drunk at the junction. We dealt with that a few years ago. Now, whether there's been another one since, I've not come across that, but it was to do with alcohol and etc. But the basic issue here is and it's a fallback position. The developers can do 34 houses with that design now. You can't stop that happening. This is a scheme that is less, so in theory, slight reduction, not major, but slight reduction in numbers. You can't ignore that. You've got to appeal, you can't ignore that. And objecting to a principle of development when somebody can go on and develop 34 houses tomorrow would be, in a planning sense, irrational. And you will get costs against you for refusing on the principle of it. Okay. And the lawful start, I can give you a chapter and verse on that, but the developer did discharge the conditions. There was only a few days, about 8 days left until the consent expired, and then within that period they put a technical start. Technical start under section 56 of the Act says put a foundation in. That's a technical start. And they have done that. That was inspected by a building control officer. It was covered up, but there used to be something in planning law called a coloured start. That's what the technical term was. That meant somebody was not really wanting to start, but they're going to do that to try and keep the permission alive. That went years ago. There's no such thing. You start, you start. Okay, that's what we are in law. Settlement boundary, yes. Were this not to have a planning permission on, the recommendation would have been refusal, as per the one on the opposite side of the road, because it's now contrary to the provisions of I think it's DM28 of the local plan, but we're not in that position because the technical start on a 34 unit scheme has happened. All that helps, Chairman.
That's fine, thank you. Councillor Ashsupwith.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, thank you to the speakers. It's really useful to have people here from the local area that really fill in the picture of what this development would be, what it looks like, what it's like living in that area, what everything kind of looks like on site. We visited this afternoon. I know the area not well, but I know the area. My friend used to live around the corner, so I kind of, you know, I knew the road, but I didn't know that field. So it was nice to go and look over the hedge and have a look and see it in reality. Now, I have a pet hate, which was similar to the last application that we looked at, that about copy and paste style houses. I don't like, you know, the idea that houses are designed, all right, copy, paste, wherever we can fit them, and that's always a bugbear on pretty much all developments of this sort of nature, where we've got you know, more than one or two sort of individually designed houses. So as soon as we get over a couple, it tends to be that we've got a bit of a homogeneous style and design. So, but looking at the site, the edge that leads to the back of the houses that exist there. My colleague Sarah and I discussed how, when you're designing these layouts, they can be better than they are sometimes. And in this case, the gable ends of the properties looking against the gardens are sort of a half measure against giving the privacy to the people who already live in those houses. But actually, how much nicer would it have been if the back gardens of those properties extended against the back gardens of the others? So actually you doubled the amount of distance between the properties rather than being sort of up against them. It would, you know, there's always a kind of way to design these things, and I think that's what I'm kind of getting at with the homogeneous style of the actual properties as well. Thank you for telling us about the road situation. That's really interesting. And as Mr. Watson said to us, if we were looking at this as a brand new planning application, it would be a whole different situation. I think we'd be looking at probably refusing as well, and Neil will be recommending that, as he'd said. But we are in a situation where there is already a principle of development on the site. So we are really hand-tied with this situation, because something will be built on the site because it's already commenced according to the law. So on the basis of that and the comments around the drainage, I'm sort of a little bit stuck. Neil, I understand what you're saying about water runs through any site and it's how it's managed, but that's where my ears sort of pricked up, how it's managed. And as much as I trust in some respects the delegate grant consent on the basis that those things are dealt with, I do wonder whether we should see that as councillors and make sure that all of the things, that all of the T's are crossed and the I's dotted as a committee, just to make sure that we're happy with those arrangements. And I'm happy to take your advice.
You look at a site and you assess the rainfall that's going to come down, the saturation rates, the capacity that you have to then put into the hydro breaks, and that leads then to a figure of a greenfield runoff rate based on climate change plus 50 years, etc.
Okay.
That's where they are with this. The strategy basically is how we're going to deal with that level of water, where is it going to discharge to, and they've done that. They've got the calculations about the runoff rate. It's then for conditions to say, right, how are they going to technically do that? So they're establishing the principle of what we need to do. The technical details is, and this is the where we got stuck on the appeal before. Why can't you just deal with it by a condition to say we want the full details at a later stage? Okay. So they've got to that point where the lead local flood, etc. say, I'm happy with your calculations, I'm happy with your storage, what you're going to have to do. It's for you then to come back at a later date and give us the proper detailed technical consent. So you can do it with the right condition. My advice would be don't not do that, because I think it's onerous, and if they appealed against that, we would be in exactly the situation where we were on the Meadows, where we got costs because we were being unreasonable. It was Councillor Cooney who spent all day in the hearing, and at the end of the day, the inspector's last question was, could you not have dealt with that by condition? Yes.
Okay.
25,000. So my advice is do not do it that way.
Okay, so then the condition will be that it needs to satisfy the technical
Yeah.
runoff
Come-
data as requirement.
That's the runoff rate you've to do. You design your individual scheme in detail to do that. Yeah.
Okay, right. In that case, I will move that we recommend the delegate grant consent with that condition then.
Councillor.
I'm trying to get this working for you. So,
Councillor Farras.
Neil, sorry, just whilst you're there, just a bit confused about this. Not confused, but if, for example, let's just say we refuse this particular application now, they've already got approval for 34. Is that correct? Which they could start anytime. Right, that's all.
Councillor Corbyn-Price.
So as far as I understand, if we're feeling that the drainage is all but dealt with and that Yorkshire Water's now happy.
So Yorkshire Water in the update, I said on site visit they haven't responded.
Oh.
They haven't responded. The lead local flood are happy.
Right.
Yorkshire Water.
So we've still got an objection from Yorkshire Water.
Yes.
But that will be the thing that will be dealt with if we delegated grant consent.
Yes.
So there are two elements that aren't fully sort of bolted down, that if this was a cone application and it was at cone area, these are the sort of things we'd be interested in, which is the mix of houses isn't fully agreed. And Ash and I have a couple of prejudices in life, Juliet balconies being my main one, and another one are these very, very tall and very alien, not English in any way, roofs that are to enable another floor, but it's like a disguised other floor. And there's one of these on the street scene. We actually looked at it on site. It's actually going to be one of the tallest houses on the site in where it's located, plus it just stands out in the row. And I sort of posited my view, which is it's not very Earby, this. We've got an estate in Cone that features some of these houses, and they look really, really strange in Lancashire. I don't know whether you've got a picture of them. Have you got a picture of it so people know what I'm talking about?
I wish I could put it up, but I can't. But,
Can you see? Can you see that tall one with a lot of expanse of roof there, 3 in from the edge?
Yeah.
And of course, depending on the mix of houses, really depends on what some of these houses would look like. So I have to say, as a sort of self-interested person, if this was in Cone, we'd want to be scrutinising that because the mix of houses would then dictate the design. And similarly, the other thing that's not fully worked out is the landscaping plan.
We've asked for additional hedge rows to be retained, and that will.
I think that's so important because when we were looking at the site, we had to peek and we had to stand on tiptoe to see over the hedge, and it is very well screened with mature trees and hedges. With so much hedge going, I know these things they don't grow instantly, but within a few years, if a new hedge was planted, that would be indistinguishable from the position that we see today. But I would say if I was an Earby councillor, I would want to scrutinise all of those details. I'll give you another example. There was a Cone estate where we scrutinised the landscaping plan. We scrutinised it and scrutinised it. It went back and back. And in the end, we were really happy. It had native trees, it had hedges, etc. But some of these trees and some of the hedges were in the gardens of the people who bought the houses. And then no sooner had they bought the houses than the people removed the trees and the hedges. So in fact, we would not have passed what now we are looking at. The people were perfectly within their powers to remove it, but ultimately we have to understand what is possible. So from my perspective, in this site, I would want to see the actual landscaping plan and know how much of that is dependent on private gardens, whether we could condition on them, say, certain trees staying, and really see what it would look like. I think it is so important. It's not just the number of houses. The principle of development is passed. The principle of development is happening. When I'm not disagreeing with that, I just think that these small things can make or break a development, can make or break whether a thing is successful or a thing is bleak. I don't know whether it would be reasonable to wait a month and ask for these details to be brought before us.
Can it be conditioned?
Chairman, I'm in your hands as a committee. I think these are matters of details that could be dealt with through delegation. Equally, if you were concerned about the 2 plots, which are the
tall ones,
2.5 storey ones, you could ask for those to be considered, or you could bring it back and get a holistic view of it next month.
I just feel that people in Earby really care about this. Some people have contacted me about it. And I just feel that local people, looking at Councillor Hartley, I think you're going to speak next, they probably want to have their eyes on it and just be certain that it's the best it can be within the parameters that we know that the principle of development is there. That's just my view. So I'm sorry, Ash, I don't fully agree with you tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Mick Waddington.
I understand that the drainages are took into consideration, and thank you for your photo, Jasmine. But what assessment has been actually done in the respect of springs? Because obviously we've got a photo here that clearly shows that there is a spring, and possibly 2.
That will be dealt with through the building regs. They will ensure that the underground elements within that will be properly dealt with through construction of the foundations, etc.
Thank you. Councillor David.
Thank you. Yeah, as you say, if this was to come up now, it would be down to refuse, and unfortunately it came in before my time. You mentioned curlews. Is that breeding or nesting?
It would be the nest. I'm foraging to a degree, yes.
Because I've seen curlews in this field because of the dampness of that field. We have curlews nesting on the moor, and they come down and they feed all around the fields around Earby. So they are foraging in this field, and I've personally seen them because I walk that road quite often, and I get my my Merlin app out and with the grandkids, and they certainly land all the way around there and all in the other fields, and so they are certainly foraging in there because of the dampness of the field.
To go back to this development, this site can be developed out tomorrow.
Yeah.
This change in design is.
If there was newts, bright crested newts or curlews, then it would be a different matter.
In principle, but there aren't, and we've got to remember the fallback position. The site can be stripped tomorrow. The great crested newts, it's different because it's internationally protected species, and even if you've got planning permission, you can't deal with those. But curlews aren't in that category.
They're in the red bracket.
Yeah, but they're not protected in the same way as great crested newts or red ants and things of that nature. Yeah. Just straightforward answer. Ecological grounds. With the studies that have been done, there may be curlews that forage there. They're not nesting there, but you've always got to go back to tomorrow. The bulldozers could go in and strip that land and develop it out. You can't escape that. Yeah. We can't escape that as a council. So, refusing on ecology grounds to force somebody to go to another scheme that would overrun the ecology grounds would be a perverse way of planning perversity in dealing with something.
Okay. I have to agree with Councillor Colburn-Price with the development and the houses and things like that. I mean, Earby's got enough ticky-tack houses being built at the moment with nobody in them. But what we don't have is bungalows. Mm-hmm. We have no bungalows for the elderly people coming out of tourist houses. We have no bungalows in Earby. So could we condition that some of these be bungalows?
Through you, Chairman, what we've asked the developer to do, we've just gone through a public inquiry. an examination in public, should I say, same-ish thing, where a housing mix has been established, and that's what we're asking the developer to go to. The council's policy on housing mix, we've asked them to look at that. So that sets out what we ask any developer to do, and that's what they will be responding to.
Yeah, and as I say, I do agree again with Councillor Colburn Price. I would like it to come back for scrutiny to the area committee on every aspect then of that.
Councillor Lawler-Whip.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a few things which I believe we shouldn't be passing this tonight because of. I think, first of all, you know, a spring habitat like that is not something that you can replace by, you know, buying some biodiversity credits. I think, you know, once you remove that sort of habitat for grazing, for feeding my birds, I mean, that's something that's completely lost. You know, you only have so many in a borough. Once you use them up for housing, you can't just pay someone to make a new spring. The second thing, and I think this is something that we should be seriously looking at and telling the developer to go back and change, is numbers 25 and 23 Kenilworth Drive have some properties on the new design and layout which have gable ends facing them 14 metres from their properties. And because of the lay of the land, these houses are down here, the new properties will be up here, and then the 2.5 stories tall. 14 metres away, and I think a gable end that close and that high is unacceptable in terms of the design and layout, and I don't think that should have been allowed in terms of, you know, positioning the houses in that way. And the last thing that I'd like to pick up on is in the previous plan, which we've had shown here, it was conditioned that the electric cables were buried under the site, given that the direction of the cables would be that they would extend across the length of the access road. So in the event of such as a lightning strike on a pylon, those cables would block the access to the entire site. So that this previous application was conditioned to bury those electric cables, and that was accepted by the developer at the time. So the question is that same condition on this new application? And if it's not, I believe it should be, for the same reasons it was accepted previously.
It's something I haven't looked at. I've got to say I don't want to give you a nonsense answer. I can't answer that right at this moment in time. And I can't even remember whether it was done by condition or it was done by design. So I'd have to go back and check. I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
Councillor Farrell, yeah?
So Neil, just coming back to if we were to delegate grant consent, some of the things that Councillor Sarah Colburn Price mentioned, and obviously the bungalows that were mentioned here as well, would that be an option for the developers to put in and incorporate? Or would that be like a delegation that you would put forward to them? But they could also refuse that, couldn't they?
Well, they are considering that. They will come back with a proposal, but the housing mix, as I said, is set out in the policies in the local plan. That's what we're expecting developers to deliver. That's what we're asked them to do to make it local plan compliant. Deviating from that is no different than having this scheme. We've got to have evidence to deviate from. So it is a local plan policy compliant position we're asking them to hold.
But currently, we don't have anything that is compliant with our housing mix.
We're
waiting for it still.
Any other speakers? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with lots of points that have been made. I think it is unfortunate that we are in this position because this site would not be developed under the current local plan. However, we are where we are. And I think my question is really for Neil, if I could, through you, Chair. Do we run a risk as councillors if we're sort of trying to micromanage on landscaping and building height and mix and status of springs, do we run the risk that the developer simply says, right, well, I'm going to start developing the 34 now because you are just delaying this for, you are applying a standard of oversight which you don't normally apply on other applications, and that's my worry.
Chairman, I can't. There clearly is a risk because there's an extant planning permission. What that level of risk is, I suggest probably for a short delay, relatively low, because this is a scheme the developer wishes to pursue. They want to sell, and they probably done half the calculations, and they'll do further calculations, etc. If they get consent. So, I would suggest that the risk is small in the immediate short term. Certainly for if you're asking for a month's delay, I think the risk would be relatively small. But that's a question for the developer, really, not for me.
Councillor Yvonne?
Yeah, I'm glad that Councillor Whip brought up the gable ends 14 metres from the back of the gardens. That just leapt out at me straight away when I looked at the plan. Is there any way it could be conditioned that those houses maybe get turned round? Because I certainly wouldn't want to be sat in my garden with a great big brick wall at the back of it. So is there anything that could be done at this stage?
Well, Chairman, ultimately you could refuse on that ground. I wouldn't advise you to do that. You've got to. People have a view across to the back of the houses now, but the planning system does not protect views, so you're not entitled to that protection of those views. So you look at what is the detrimental impact. Is it overbearing? Well, this room is about 14 metres long, give or take. So from the back of the house to the new houses, that's a distance broadly. I would suggest it's around 40 metres. Would that be enough to be overbearing on your house? No, it clearly is too far away. Is it overbearing in terms of loss of privacy? No, because there are small windows which are bathrooms, so they would be obscurely glazed. So it would affect potentially the rear of the garden area. Would it be overbearing on that? Well, you look at the relationship of lots of houses around, it's not an unusual situation to have properties close to you. So I think it will be a difficult one to justify a substantiated appeal.
Okay. Sorry, Neil, this is also, I'm just getting confused now with, I'm kind of interested more about this electric now. Obviously, we believe it was going to be buried, is that correct or not?
On the last application it was, as I said, I just didn't look at that, so I don't want to tell you the wrong information about that. The developer, unless you want to ask the developer just on that point, Chairman, through you.
Yeah, just on that point, please.
You hear me now? I've just spoken to the applicants and they will be by the end of the fires and that, so that will take place.
That's fine, thank you. It's okay, does that answer your question? Any other speakers? Are you moving that or?
I moved that, but I don't know whether I've got any support for the deferral for a month, just to look at the landscaping, the housing mix, and particularly for me personally, the incongruous design of the very tall roofed houses within that housing mix.
Yes, that's proposal. It needs seconding.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Councillor.
I will withdraw my motion to approve, delegate, grant consent to support the deferral in this case. I think that's probably the right thing to do in this instance to satisfy the landscaping and house type.
That's fine. Councillor Lawler.
Thank you, Chair. I'd be happy to second that with the amendment of the design and layout in terms of the relationship to Kenilworth Drive, and see if there's anything that could be done there as well.
Struggle with that.
Sure, I can have the conversation. I think you would struggle justifying that on appeal.
So I think if we keep it informal, but you have the conversation.
As part of the discussions
Yeah.
that I will take forward with the applicant afterwards. But again, I don't make the decision. I've got to be clear. You make the decisions, Chairman. You're the committee.
So we'll take the vote on the deferral, which moves by Councillor Corbyn Price and second by Councillor Ash Sutcliffe. All those for deferral? That's been deferred. Thank you very much. Right, back to the front, which is the second application. The second application is 26/0018/VAR, variation of condition. Condition 2, plans of planning permission 25/0431/HHO at 33 Hayhead Street in Briarfield. Do you have anything to add on this one first?
Yes, Chairman. We're back to where we not quite were fully before, but we've had one. So I'm just trying to get to my notes on here. Chairman, we had one design that came through which had full render, and then yesterday we got one which continues some of the marble on there. So we've gone from refusal to approval back to refusal. Recommendation, should I say? Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Ash Sutcliffe, just before I bring you in, I'm just going to quickly mention one thing on this. The applicant did ring me on this one yesterday, and they were asking that, do you know what's going on with the application? So I did ring the person who's dealing with this application. I can't remember his name now.
Luke Jones.
Luke. So when I did speak to Luke, he goes that there was amended plans come in for rendering on the full outside, which we are happy to approve. Is that correct, first of all?
Chairman, we got these amended plans which showed rendering. Sorry, I can't show you, apologies, but showed render. Yeah, and then yesterday we got amended plans which show
they want it inside the porch,
well, marble inserts which sorry, look, design wise they're awful.
So I did tell him this because Luke did mention to me that if they are going with just the rendering, that is for approval, and if they want to add the marble style into it, then that is still down for refusal. Councillor Sajjad rang me earlier on today saying that the applicant is now prepared to go back to the rendering. So is that something that would have to leave to you now?
I can only deal with what they submit. They've put a conscious effort in to go back to marble. So, sorry?
It's not even marble.
Well, marble. You know,
Yeah.
so which is that. So, as I see it, Chairman, if they want to do that, can we give them a deadline and say, can we have amended plan if you wish to do that? Because we need plans before amended plans within 7 days, and or it's a refusal based on these plans. Does that make sense? You're looking at me as if I've got three.
No, all to be rendered.
Yes.
Exactly, yeah.
Before then I'll bring Ash in, I'll move it for delegate grant consent. We'll give them a couple of days on it then. If they're happy to go with the
full
rendering that was going to be approved.
Yeah.
Approve. If it is going to be for the marble tile inserts or anything, refuse it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Are we okay to do that?
That's your proposal. It needs a obviously second.
That's fine. Councillor Ash Sutcliffe, I'll bring you in then.
Thank you. So when this was brought before us previously, I said, well, I was frustrated last time. I'm more frustrated now because we're in a situation where it feels like we don't really know what we're dealing with. You know, between the area committee making their decision and it coming before us last time, there was enough time to amend those plans to come to us to make a decision, and that didn't happen. And then we're in a situation now where we've had amended plans put forward, which we were more or less happy with, or the planning were more or less happy with, and it had that recommendation. And then this afternoon, I couldn't believe it when I opened my emails and got the planning update. I thought, oh my God, you know, what on earth are these people playing at? Give us an idea, stick to it, understand where you are, where you live, what the buildings look like, you know, look at the surrounding area and deliver something that is acceptable for the property, for the area, for the people that you're living with in that community, that is acceptable, you know, to live alongside. So if you've just moved that we approve a full rendered scheme. Now, I'm happy to support that if it is a full rendered scheme, including all external surfaces. So whether a porch is inside or outside is not part of the debate. It's outside. So inside of that porch, which is an external surface, must be rendered. And if that is the case, and I'm speaking very clearly because this is being recorded, so we all know that it's an external surface, every single external surface that is having Timu style fake marble will be rendered, then I'm happy to second that proposal.
Can I just quickly bring you back in, Neil? On the one that is for approval, does that tick Ash's boxes off that? It's going to be every external surface.
As I've seen that, it's all rendered, yes.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Yeah, hence why previously I did state, we do try and compromise. And I did highlight, obviously, the internals when we last spoke. And, obviously, with the tiles outside, it was definitely a no-go, which obviously I agree with you all. And I'm glad to know that they have come with these amended plans. I'm glad to see that it will be rendered. So I'm happy with that.
Any other speakers?
To be truthful, I'm happy to go with the full render, but I'm not happy in the way that this resident seems to be treating us like mugs, because it's wasting our time, it's wasting the council's time, and he's got to make that decision. For me, it's a one-shot chance. If it doesn't comply, then I'm all for refusing.
Sarah Coburn-Price.
I just have a question for Neil. Several people have and I've not seen this with my own eyes, but several people have commented about the extensive and dramatic gutter lighting scheme on this house. Apparently it's very exciting at night, and I just wondered whether all of that is PD or not.
Generally, the lighting something is not considered to be development.
Okay.
So it's not
Because
something.
apparently it washes down from underneath the gutters.
No way.
Apparently. In a dramatic and standout style.
Never ever taken enforcement action against lighting in 34 years of a planning career.
I've not seen it with my own
but,
eyes. I've only had people report it to me.
What are the viewing times?
Well, obviously, at this time of the year, we have to stay up late to enjoy. But in the winter, we could go early tea time and enjoy it.
You're not having a night out on Hayhead Street, calm down.
A week or two ago, but not now.
But would you feel, as described, and this is second-hand because I've not seen it with my own eyes, but would you feel that this under-guttering, wash-down lighting would be PD?
I don't think it's development. The lighting something is generally not development itself.
Right.
So
I just thought I'd ask the question.
I don't know what it is actually, because it's not an advert. You
I
see.
think a lot of the passers-by don't know what it is either.
Could be an environmental issue then.
I'll look at
Like a nuisance.
I'll look at that.
Yeah, it could be a nuisance issue.
Okay.
That's fine. Thank you. Yeah.
So can I just be clear? You're saying it's a resolution. Yes to render, no to
any
other, and 7 days for a decision. Is that what you said?
That's reasonable. That is, yeah.
Okay. I want to ask the committee something else after you voted on that, if you will, please.
Yeah, that's fine. So we'll go for the vote to delegate grant consent, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ash Sutcliffe. All those for? That's fine. Thank you.
Chairman, it will give some power to the council's elbow, my elbow, whoever you want to say it is, to say if not, then enforcement action should take place against what is one of the worst designed places I've come across in my career. So, could I ask you to consider, obviously I can't propose, but consider whether that's an appropriate course of action.
With my strength of feeling on this particular property, I'm happy to move that enforcement action should ensue if we don't receive a full design in 7 days.
Could we take a vote on that?
Yeah.
Could we take a vote on that then, please? All those for? That's been approved as well. Thank you very much. Next application is 26/0180/HHO, erection of a two-storey side extension at 153 Walton Lane in Nelson. Do you want to add anything on this application? Or?
Chairman, they've done what we asked. They've amended the scheme. It's going to reflect broadly what's adjacent to them, and the impact on the neighbours now being ameliorated by that setback. So we're happy with the scheme now, Chairman, as officers.
That's fine. Councillor Corbyn-Price.
So obviously we had a site visit earlier. It's quite clear that if it was set back, it would actually mirror quite nicely the next door property. So it's all everybody's happy, and I think it just goes to show the value of the planning system and how we and professional planning officers can make an improvement which over time improves all our towns, just in a small way, but over time actually it's a major way. So I move that that we approve that.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Lane. Thank you. Any other speakers before we go to the vote? All those for the approval? All those against? That's been approved. Thank you.
Is that down to delegate grant consent?
Next application is 26/0191/HHO. Demolition of existing pedestrian gate, widening of existing vehicle access with the addition of a privacy screen and installation of electric sliding gates at 509 Colne Road, Reedley. Neil, do you want to start us off with this one, please?
Yes, Chairman. I was looking at the design, preparing for this, and realised that the proposed and existing were identical, and clearly they're not. So the existing gate railings were lower. It's now increased in height, and obviously it's got the metal backboarding against it, which obscures view. Chairman, the other side of it as well, just to take on board, the pillars either side have been increased in height as well. So the issue for us is really pedestrians. You've got a nursery, you need to be able to see people approaching. Now when they had the lower railings and it was open, wasn't ideal, but you could see through them. So it did help, and particularly looking over your left shoulder when people were approaching from the nursery, you could see them. You just can't see them now. So but we've asked for amendments, and obviously we haven't got them. So it's as before for refusal.
Councillor Barras.
Yeah, historically, I've obviously debated on a similar situation over in Howgill Close. I don't know if you can remember, Neil, where there was a similar issue there. So I can understand where Neil's coming from. But in terms of having a response from the resident, has there been anything?
We spoke to them on site today through you, Chairman, and I think the resolution was just we want it as it is, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Is that Councillor Corbyn-Price?
I think this shows a problem whereby certainly there's been enforcement cases that have slipped through the net, and then you get some bad applications that come forward that are passed, and it gives people the genuine and honest impression that inappropriate development is okay. And certainly this chap seemed to think that, didn't he? We met him this afternoon, he seemed to think that. But it's actually a poorly designed piece of development. I'm a bit of an Accrington brick nerd, as you might expect, coming from Lytham St Anne's. And you can see that the gate piers are Accrington brick to a certain point, and then they haven't bothered, and they must be able to get reclaimed Accrington brick, to get the matching brick to make them taller. It is an irrelevance because the gate piers are too tall, and the panels are enormous. They're meant to be 1.9 metres tall. My son is 1.97 metres tall, and they are a lot taller than him. They are exceptionally tall and very forbidding. And I get the whole idea about child safety and pedestrians and everything. Neil was having that conversation with the resident on site. But it's actually what it says about our towns, what our communities are like. If we all had houses that were shut off and behind tall gates and tall fences, what would we feel like walking along the road? Would we feel safe? Would we feel that we were going to have a nice chat over the garden fence? Would we feel part of a community? We'd hurry along away from this fenced, enclosed, forbidding place. And this is the kind of incremental change that really has a deleterious effect on all our communities. And really, the officer's report gets to it on page 16. The boarded railings provide no visibility into the site and create a gated-off private space which is divorced from the surrounding street scene. Couldn't have put it better myself. This is more akin to a close boarded fence, which would be typically to be found at the rear of a domestic property and has no place in this prominent position on the public highway. Later on, it creates a visually jarring effect which is not characteristic of the dwellings of the surrounding area and screens much of the frontage from public view. This creates a fortified structure. This is what I was saying, how it feels. You feel embattled upon a prominent boundary of the dwelling when viewed from the public highway. In turn, this not only causes an unacceptable impact upon the character and appearance of the area, but it also introduces a negative closed frontage to the dwelling, so there is no active surveillance of the highway, which contributes to the fear of crime in the area. The height and design of the boarded railings creates a fortified entrance and divorces the public highway from the dwelling. And obviously, he then goes on to say that because there are other developments around that are similar, and these are timed out, it's given the applicant the view that it's okay. But actually, it actually really, really spoils the road, and cumulatively, that impact only increases. So I move that we refuse this application.
Councillor Ash.
I agree entirely with what Sarah was just saying in terms of the appearance and the feeling of fences like this. I always describe the feeling as being like a compound. I think that's my terminology for how these fences feel when they're so tall and imposing and you can't see through them at all. I mean, you know, security concerns are one thing, but that visual connection between properties and communities is really, really important for us. And so I do completely agree. My concerns are different though. My concerns are more around the practicality of using that driveway on that stretch of road. And having grown up in Burnley, Colne Road has been a notorious place for accidents. And our report says, well, it says as much, that there is a history of speed compliance on this section of Colne Road, subject to a 30 mile per hour speed limit, with traffic speeds still a concern. Now we know that because the government have given us a big wedge of money through Lancashire County Council to invest in average speed cameras all the way along the A682 from Burnley to Briarfield. And the reason being because cars persistently speed. They're always doing that. And so the danger is ever present on that road. So to have a development which is actually causing extra danger because you cannot see when you're leaving that property, whether you're on foot or in a car. But obviously in a car, you cannot see if there's a child behind that screening, behind that fence, behind that wall. You cannot see if there's a car coming down there. There's no visibility display. There is nothing. You're straight out onto a pavement, straight out onto a busy road, which we know has a speeding concern. So yes, I have to second Councillor Sarah Colburn-Price's motion to refuse.
Any other councillor?
Totally agree with Sarah and Ash, but I'd just like to add to that. Basically, for the vehicle to come out of that property, you can't see, as you've been told, but by the time the vehicles have actually come out, the front end of the car is actually in the road before you can see. And if there's any vehicles in front of that property, then they're virtually out onto white line, which is more of a hazard. Whereas if those boardings weren't there, they'd have more of a chance to see further down the road. And for me, it's totally inadequate that you, on that road, it's probably one of the most dangerous roads in Pendle at the moment, with the accidents due to speeding. So for me, yeah, I'm totally against it.
Any other speakers? Oh, that's fine. Just a quick one, Neil. Do you know, as it was sent out in the report today, enforcement action is recommended. Shall we add that to the refusal, or?
I was going to bring it up after your decision, because if you approved it, then the enforcement action wouldn't be appropriate. But yes, I was going to bring that up, whether it's in that motion or a different one. That's for yourself.
I'm happy to be in that motion. Yeah, include it.
That's fine. Any other speakers before to the vote? That's fine. All those for the refusal?
And the enforcement.
And for the enforcement, yeah. All those against? That's been refused. That's it. That's all. Thank you very much, guys.
There's something happening tonight, by the way, Chairman, isn't it?
Where that?
Playing, aren't they?